It's probably more likely than unlikely that the greatest music ever made, we haven't heard.
Right.
The truth is that many people have difficulty getting out of bed in the morning, right? And particularly if you're artistically inclined and you're making music and you have, in some cases, limiting beliefs or self-doubt or whatever, you never ever gain up the courage to walk up to Nile Rodgers and put the record in his hand.
When I started out, you absolutely had to have a lot of people in your corner. I mean, even if it wasn't an army of people, you still had to have a nice machine to help you go from one place to the other. Now, the truth of the matter is that with us, thank God, we had discos and we had DJs who would play it and they'd have an audience and they could turn their audience onto our music. But if we didn't have that, no one would have heard us. In today's world, because of technology, you can actually spread your message without having that machinery behind you. As Merck said, maybe the greatest music is still yet to come. Maybe we haven't heard it yet because that person hasn't exposed themselves to the world yet.
Nile is an intellectual on one hand, completely intuitive on the other hand. And in sports terms, he's, the sort of triple, quadruple threat because he writes, he produces, he performs, he arranges, he envisages things that people haven't, heard or seen before. And he does it fearlessly, whereas most people are trying to figure out how to become famous. These are two very different things. David Bowie may have wanted to become famous, but he wanted to be great first.
Yeah. There have been times that I've believed in a song so much that whether the team was totally incompetent and could just barely get me to the radio station, I just knew that once they played it for the program director was going to play it for his kids and everyone would say, "Dad, that's the record you need to play." That happened a couple of times, but it doesn't happen with me that often because I don't necessarily think about the commerciality of the record when I'm doing it. I actually think about the artistic reach. Does this speak to your soul? And even if you think it's corny, that's perfectly fine with me. But if it touches my soul, I say, maybe this has a shot. I'm insanely idealistic. I really believe in the power of the song to communicate the message. And more often than not, I'm wrong. Just because I am that idealistic. I won't think about the image and all that kind of stuff that I really know is important when it comes to marketing. As Merck said, I'm not afraid of failure because I know that most of the time I'm going to fail. So since I know that, I go into the room with all guns blazing.
The We Are Family Foundation honored Dolly Parton the other night. And Dolly was kind enough to sing a few songs, and one of them was "I Will Always Love You," right? Now, if you wrote that line down on a piece of paper, "I will always love you," and said, that's the chorus of my song, you would normally go, that's the corniest shit ever, right? But in Dolly's hands,
it's killer.
It's one of the greatest songs ever written. You hear I love you in songs every day, 24 times a day, right? But Dolly wrote a song and she sang it in such a way and created a blueprint for Whitney Houston to maybe do the definitive version of it that was totally authentic.
She actually said that when she wrote it, she really did believe it at the time.
The 1970s are everything because in the 1970s, I could listen to Led Zeppelin, Physical Graffiti. I could listen to Bob Dylan, Patti Smith doing
Chic.
Easter or Horses. No, I'm getting there. Come on. To the Clash, to Chic. And then particularly when you get there, right? When you get there and you understand that the Clash, even though they were playing punk rock, were listening to Chic records, and Generation X were listening to Chic records, and Susie and the Banshees were listening to Chic records, and the Sex Pistols even. The 70s become this unbelievable melting pot.
The thing that was amazing about the 70s that's maybe unlike any other generation except maybe after World War II or maybe after World War I was that in America, we were celebrating so many victories that we believed we had achieved. End of the Vietnam War, which was amazing for us. It was the start of the women's movement, the gay rights movement. Black power was in full effect. It just felt like a time to celebrate all these bohemian concepts that we now felt that were at our grasp and that they weren't so foreign to pop radio. You didn't have to have movie star good looks. You could be pretty funky and grungy and whatever, but if you spoke to someone's soul, if you had that affinity group, bam, you were there. I remember walking into a disco and hearing the first night that I heard what I really felt was that transformative moment. The three records that played back to back was Donna Summer, Love to Love You Baby. Right behind that was the Village People's first single called San Francisco. And then behind that was Eddie Kendrick's Girl, You Need a Change of Mind. And I remember that night as if it were yesterday. I looked at all the different people dancing and they didn't seem to have anything really in common. It was a very sort of mixed crowd. And I thought to myself, wow, look at that. Because that's what revolution is all about. It's about connecting to the masses. And there was this really disparate crowd and they all were so down. You know, when I was younger and I was this heavy duty activist, that's what we wanted to achieve. We wanted to see all different people marching in the same parade. And when I went into a disco and I saw that and I was like, that's it.